Guess I gotta turn on my microphone for you to hear me, right? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tough Talks, episode 6. We're already 6 weeks. I was thinking about that last night, actually, and I did a short video yesterday that I was tapped in to do. The universe kind of nudged me, and I was creating some content and just kind of writing things down that were coming in, and I shared that. So if you haven't caught it, if you haven't seen it yet, catch it on Turnleaf page. A couple tips there to help you out. Mastering your life here, getting the best of your life. So a couple tips there for that. But yeah, episode 6 weeks. I don't even we are like heading end of May here. And I don't even know where the year has gone. It just feels like time is speeding up. But it's interesting enough. I've also recognized, like, yes, time is it's going. I feel like it's going fast, and weeks and months are passing pretty quick. But when I need to do something that I need to okay, slow the time down, I find if I've got a few tasks to do, and I need the time to slow down. I'll look at the clock, for example. I'm getting the kids ready in the morning, and they've got to be out. We don't like to get them out no later than 10 after 8. And if we've got a few things to do in the morning, which we always do, I'll look at the time and it's 10 to 8. And I'm like, oh shoot, we only got, 20 more minutes. And then I'll do a few things. And I feel like I look back and I've done a lot, and it's only 5 minutes. I got 15 more minutes. So I kind of liken that aspect of the illusion per se. So, but yeah, so episode 6, Tough Talks. For those of you that are new to my page, new to me, I come on every Thursday at noon to discuss everything and anything, your challenges, your triumphs. My background is I'm an addiction specialist with mental health. I've been in the field for quite some time here. So I come on and I authentically share. I try to keep it as authentic as possible. No script, no pre-planning. The only time I'll pre-plan per se is if I got somebody saying, hey, do you mind discussing this topic or this challenge? Then of course that'll be something that I bring up during the lives at noon on Thursdays with Tough Talks. But I don't have any notes. I don't have anything planned. I've got a lot of content in this noggin here. I read a lot. I follow a lot of people, a lot of research, a lot of doctors, a lot of healers, a lot of I get a little bit of everything. I've always been like that since I was young. And I really do think it has to do with the fact that I had to pay attention to everything around me. And I was always curious. I was always just interested in all adult conversations. If you can think about the kid that wants to snoop and sit at the top of the stairs while mom and dad are having some friends over, or they're even having a conversation or what have you. And I'm the kid on top of the stairs listening in that's supposed to be sleeping. And my brain I love everything, especially of course, because my background is mental health, behavior, and why we do the things that we do, why we perform the way we perform. I'm very much, I like to take it up a notch of why are we here, and what are we, and is there more, so I'm that type of thinker. I am an intellect. I do like evidence. I do like data. I do like all that as well. But I tap into, especially within the last couple of years, I really tapped into my intuition. I've always been an intuitive. I've always been an empath. I do kind of get support, and the noise is a little bit louder in my head, and it was when I was younger, seeing our loved ones that have passed and hearing things and getting these downloads. And when I was younger, I grew up in a a loosely Catholic. I grew up in the Catholic school board. Went to church pretty much on a weekly basis. So, but there wasn't much support around, me hearing and seeing things that were not there to others. And so I was always sensitive to this. And eventually, because it wasn't normal and it wasn't, by all means, I would share my stories, and my family believed in, the spirit world and such. Majority of them did, but there was still that unknown, and there was still that question, because we are evidence-based, we are intellectual thinkers, especially because we do have our TVs on a lot. Growing up, the news was on a lot. So when I would come in and say, I heard or seen, or sometimes I would even wake up in different locations of my room and such, and I'm sharing. I didn't plan on sharing this, but whatever, it is what it is. It's authentic. It's just coming in for me. So if I would say this, the next day or what have you, sure, there would be, an acknowledgement, but there would be, and it's nothing they did wrong. It was viewed as a negative entity per se. And so my perception of this was negative. So a lot of negative things happened to me. And of course, everything else that was going on in my life at the time. However, I turned it off. I turned it off, and I turned it off when, after my mother passed away, it got really, really, really strong afterwards. And so I shut it off, and they respected that. But, as of recent, within the last few years, I'm full force these days, full force. It's getting stronger, and I love it. It's a great relationship with the universe, great relationship with my guides, my ancestors, the ones that have passed before me. I've got I've got a few close relatives that are definitely on my side. So, anywho, I digress. But I don't even remember. I don't even know where I was going with this. I am like wired today. I don't know if you see it, but I feel all week, just like wired, wired, wired. The energies are they're loud. I've been getting up pretty much every morning between 3 and 5. And typically I would allow that, because that's it's the hour where you're kind of in that theta, getting out of delta. And that's when the veil per se is the thinnest. So I'll really get a lot of downloads. Creativity comes in, sentences, words, and it's kind of that not sleeping, not awake. It's that theta stage, or your dream state per se, but you're not sleeping. And so I've been all week just getting up all week, and I'm not tired, and I'm up for like an hour at least, and I accept that. But it's really strong this week, really, really strong. So I am wired today. I feel really energetic. I hope I don't crash tomorrow, what have you, but it is what it is if I do. But really motivated, creative, just like it's a lot of chatter. So trying to organize everything, and determine where I want to place my energy. So if I seem a little scattered today, just just bear with me. It's hold space for me as I hold for you. Totally just getting a deja vu right now. Hoo hoo hoo. I've been here obviously before. Do this every week, Thursdays at noon. But when you get those deja vus, it's like, ooh, I'm looking around. You're like, ooh, I've been here before. So that is a good indicator that spirit is close, and I acknowledge that. Anywho, so today I had a couple pretty intense sessions yesterday in particular. And they're feeling the energies as well. Okay. But what was asked of me and what came in for session yesterday, I have an individual that I've been working with for quite some time now, and a little bit older lady, and addicted to substance use. She's been using for quite some time. She's had a period of abstinence, and she's recently had a slip. And really, yesterday as we were in session, typically she would be open to discussing what happened for her, the people, places, and things, just that kind of 101 that we us helpers, us counselors that work in addiction, or if you just, you're a counselor in general, really looking at, the triggers and a timeline and the stressors before. Typically you can see a relapse happening. I saw it coming, which, I did give feedback to. But when somebody has a part of them that is dependent on a substance or an action like gambling or shopping or pornography, sex, what have you, that's a huge relief for them in that moment. If everything around them and everyone around them is just going to shit. Okay, so this is a tool that she has used to pick up, to kind of put out the fire. These are firefighters. These coping mechanisms put out the fire temporarily. Okay. But yesterday, as we were going through, our checklist here, she was really frustrated with herself. Very, very frustrated with herself, very emotional, which I definitely hold space for, because she's not, she doesn't typically, she's very obedient, and she's a people pleaser, and she likes to do what she's told to do. And so her, and I think I said a few things, I'm not going to get into great detail, but I think I said a few things that triggered this response of anger and resentment in her yesterday, which I see that as a breakthrough. I see that as she's finally speaking her truth. And so instead of saying, tell me, Melissa, what to do, and sure, she makes her own. We plan according to what she is motivated to do. And if she's not motivated to do it, we'll talk about that as well. But yesterday was a little bit different. She was really angry that she loops back into this pattern, and surrounds herself with people that are unhealthy, and that are not well. They don't make great decisions either. So she falls back into these patterns. She also has a partner that is they're dependent. She, in particular, her partner, is very dependent on this individual. And it's a cycle of, if you don't be, say, and give me what I am requesting, there's going to be some consequences for that. And she's been dealing with this her whole life. And sure, there's periods of time that she has confidence and she can set boundaries. As I've been working with her, that has been getting better. Excuse me. But what I noticed yesterday is she did have a slip, and unfortunately it wasn't a good one. And she ended up in hospital, and she wasn't well. The stuff that we have on the streets right now, you think you're taking one thing and it's another, okay? And unfortunately it didn't turn out so good. She's still alive, so absolutely, I'm definitely wholeheartedly, obviously grateful for that. But she was really angry with herself. This anger I haven't quite seen before, and so this was new. All right. And you could support somebody as a counselor, be there for them, hold space, give them all the referrals, recommendations, and tools that you want. Okay. But they, it's their choice. It's their choice. And this action, this part of her, this attachment to her lifestyle, to her substance, to these relationships, that's been an ongoing pattern for years and years and years. And so really what it comes down to now is, through our conversation, she really wants to know why, and she blames God, and she blames she is spiritual, and she blames the universe, and she's so angry with herself, and I can see it in her eyes, I can feel it in her energy, that she wants this to stop. She wants this to stop. And I asked the question, do you want to live? Because sometimes we don't want to live. These are the tough conversations I have with my clients. Sometimes we feel like we don't want to be on this earth anymore. Okay. And avoiding it and deflecting it, it actually just gets louder and louder. So if you genuinely feel like you don't want to be, if this is just too hard, and especially, we look around the world right now, there's a lot of things that are going on. There's kind of two worlds going on here, and so that can be overwhelming. So I genuinely ask her, and I ask the clients, that are in this mindset, this scenario, and do you want to live? And her answer, she wants to live so bad. Yes. And just, of course the tears are coming, and she's really releasing and pretty much begging, that part of hers begging for survival. But she's so angry at these parts of her that continue to loop back into dysfunctional relationships. That's a big one for her, is surrounding herself with people that that on the outside completely take advantage of her. She is kind, she is vulnerable, comes from vulnerability. We get it a little bit twisted. We mistaken her kindness when really it's vulnerability. She feels vulnerable. And so I've done, we've looked at her inner child, of course. We've looked at all this. But she's typically not in a mindset to really look at these parts. And so we can never force anyone to look somewhere where they're not ready to look. Okay. And that's why, as helpers here, we've got to be really patient, that we are not pushing our own agenda, because it could be really frustrating and feeling helpless when you have a client or a family member that continues to use and continues to repattern themselves back into unhealthy behaviors. Okay, it could feel discouraging. You can feel defeat. Okay, but over the years, I've practiced really holding space, and sometimes these individuals that I work with, they're very, they don't want to touch those areas of them. And that's okay, because I know there's going to be a time. There's always a time, always a time. And I feel like hers was yesterday. She's had a few bumps in the road, but yesterday just felt different. And, why am I cycling back into these relationships? Why do I keep on using drugs? She's been to treatment a few times, so she knows the 101 on substance use, relapse prevention. She knows she's been through trauma. She knows all this, but awareness is only part of it. Okay, awareness is only part of it. She goes to groups, she goes to, she has her peers that she can tap into. She knows what healthy supports and a healthy lifestyle, what they look like. She knows all that. She's connected to a psychiatrist, so she's got that as well. Like she's been doing this for quite some time. And so she begged me pretty much, as we kind of got into it, was really just help her unravel the parts of her that cycle back into these patterns, these unhealthy relationships. Okay, feeling of when she does stay away from these people, the unhealthy people that really onset using an unhealthy behavior. I mean, there's been a lot of things that happen to people that use substances. There's crime, there's sexual abuse, there's a lot of that is unfortunately going on. Okay, so that hurts. They are begging, and it fires me up a little bit. Not so much anymore, because I'm really showing compassion to the collective these days. We all have our own opinions, we all have our own ideas, but it's that, oh, it's their fault that they're using, they can change it and such like that. She is begging to live. She is begging to live. She does not want to use drugs anymore. She wants some peace. She wants some ease. Okay? She is begging for it. And all my clients at this stage, they beg for life. They beg for help. All right. And, when she asks me, I've been doing boundary work with her for quite some time now. And she knows it intellectually. She knows what boundaries are. I'm very good at explaining what boundaries are and why we don't hold certain boundaries if we have no boundaries, or partial boundaries, or good boundaries, whatever that looks like. I really run that through with her. So there's an awareness there. Intellectually, she understands it. But the trauma that she's been through, the beliefs that she has of the world, the beliefs that she has of the people around her, the beliefs that she has about the medical system in particular, because she's been in and out using the medical system. So these beliefs, the beliefs that she has of her parents, of her siblings, these been ingrained in her at a very young age. Okay. And so when I speak with her about boundaries, she'll do it for a few days or a couple weeks or what have you. But she says, when I'm doing it, even though I'm not using drugs, even though I'm not around people that are using, I feel lonely. I feel isolated. I feel like I'm running from something. And it's just in her skin. So she tries to distract herself with cleaning and doing things for other people, giving the shirt off her back. And she ultimately ends up not sleeping for days. The anxiety's high. There is so much going on for her up here. And that depression kicks in, and when her partner does give her a call, what have you, and says, hey, I'm going to swing by, or she's feeling lonely, she's vulnerable, so she's going to say yes to that. She doesn't want this lifestyle anymore. She wants to live. And if she knows that if she continues on this path, that chances are she's going to die. Okay. She's aware of that. Okay. And so what I say to her is, the parts of you that don't feel worthy, and as I'm going through session with her, of course, I'm not going to take you through my techniques. I'll just bore you with them. Actually, they're pretty cool. They're really, really cool, actually. But anywho, so as I'm taking her through, really, gearing her up to find out what parts, and because I've been working with her I can assume, but we try not to do that, right? We try not to do that and let it come out of their mouth. Empower them, because you can heal yourself. You can be aware of yourself. You can hold space for yourself. So I really try to empower the client to have that conversation. It's prompted by questions from myself, of course. So really what came up was worthiness. Worthiness. She does not feel worthy. And there's a few other parts here, but I'm gonna try to keep it as simple as possible for time's sake here. Worthiness was a big one for her. Okay. And so her history is, abusive father, abusive household, and she could not please her father for the life of her. As a child growing up, she could not do anything right. She tried to take care of, her siblings, the household, tons of chores. And there was no acknowledgement of appreciation. If anything, it was the opposite of, you could have done it better. All right. So as I was getting into this is a very big part of this individual was worthiness. Okay. And the lack of worthiness and not trusting love. Okay. Because her perception of love, because of what she went through, was love hurts. Love is hard to get. I give everything off my back. I scrub these floors. I make my father dinner. I make sure he has what he needs. And it just hurts in return. There was a lot of verbal and physical abuse as well. Okay. And ultimately, when we have this once we're, and this was a pattern for years and years and years. So once we have scenarios like this, all right, and once we live in environments like this, that there is no acknowledgement, no acceptance, okay, you are automatically, as a child, you don't feel safe. That doesn't feel good. So you take on the role of unworthiness. You take on the role of lack of trust. You take on the role of insecurity. You take those roles on to protect yourself. She was protecting herself back then, because if she did not do what she was told, she got abused, okay? And so now when she's in her relationships today, many, many years after, she is a people pleaser. She's very vulnerable. So you're going to see a pattern with somebody with partial or no boundaries, and she falls into this. Partial or no boundaries comes from a place of never feeling acknowledged, heard, or not being able to do anything right as a child. Okay. So you want to please everyone. You want to make sure, like, you should see her house. Okay. But that's a protecting part of her, because that's something, it's clean, it's spotless. Okay. But what happens is, this is a mask that she puts on, and she cleans her friends' homes. She gives her money to them and to her partners. And to her partner, she has one partner. And they take advantage of that vulnerability, because there are times that they give her acknowledgement. If they want something from her, they're going to give her drips of satisfaction. So when we say we date our daddies and we are attracted to our mummies, it's because we are begging that program in us that got instilled, that got uploaded many, many years ago. That program is begging for approval from the father that never gave approval. So you're going to see patterns, characteristics, behaviors in your current relationships that resemble the parent or the caregiver that you begged for acceptance, approval. Okay. And that's going to come in the form she doesn't feel like she's worthy. There's a very lack of self-worth there. Her bar is so low because there was such minimal acknowledgement and love as a child. Very minimal, if any. It's sad. It's sad. But we want to nurture these parts. We are fight, flight, and freeze, especially the first 7 years of our life. Our brains are like sponges. We are in survival. We pay attention because we do not have the intellectual ability to really verbalize what we like, what we don't like, what's safe, what's not safe. We depend on the adults and the environments that we're in. Okay, so if that's coming in as not feeling very good, these parts are going to come in. And so when her partner, gives her a call and she knows the check came in, she feels like she's doing something. She's a people pleaser. There's no boundaries there because now she's left without food. She's left with very minimal financial stability within that month. And she's just begging for approval. And you're going to see this pattern. So until we start looking at that unworthiness part of her, okay, and still until she brings up the parts that were protecting her, these challengers, the triggers, like I spoke about in my short video yesterday, the challengers, getting to know these challengers. She always said, yes, of course, over the time that I've been working with her, I said, we really gotta, in order to, reshape the belief system and really look at creating new habits, getting being involved in new opportunities in life, new relationships. You gotta declutter first. You have to declutter, and you have to you gotta spend some time with these parts, with these challengers. And yesterday she was begging for it. She was really begging for it and said, if I don't look at this, because when we do another session, I'll say, okay, you want to look at these parts. They'll be deflecting. They'll be, there's that readiness, right? That motivation. And like I said, I save space for that. But she's at a point right now that she's ready to look at the unworthiness and how this part, although it was protecting her for many years growing up, it actually is causing harm right now. It's causing harm with her relationships. It's causing harm with her. And when the stress gets so high and she gives all her money and she gives everything that she can, with her cleanliness and with buying things, making sure everything is really neat and perfect for all. That worked for her as a child in that environment. Because if not, there was some pretty major consequences. But now, many years later, she's mimicking that belief system. That program is still running. That's on autopilot. It's still running. And so she makes sure she puts everything ahead of her own needs. That's because that program is still running. She's still that program is still trying to please daddy and get his acceptance. And now it's in the relationships that she has in her adult life. And she's vulnerable. And then, so the unworthiness is part of it. But then we have all these other parts. So if I say to her, you know, how do you feel about this part of you? About this unworthiness part? There's anger there. There's resentment. There's frustration. So we've got a couple parts that we've got to look at here. Because if we don't give space for all of it and bring it up, it's going to continue to cycle back in. And this parts work, as I've said before, is beautifully created by Dick Schwartz. He does the IFS, Internal Family Systems therapeutic approach. Trauma for trauma is a big one, and looking at why we do the things we do. And I said to her, why wouldn't you be doing this? Why wouldn't you be doing it? Our brains and our bodies, our subconscious, they pick up. It picks up. It's so biologically, psychologically, and don't forget the spirit part, but it's so brilliant. It's so brilliant. And this is the trick. This is the trick. I can educate her all I want on boundaries, a role play with her on how to set healthy boundaries, why she's not setting I can role play with you all day long. I can tell you to, listen to some meditation, ground yourself, be still. That's why I really highly encourage the stillness and really tap in to what you're feeling. Because if we don't, it keeps on coming in. You can run away from it all you want. It's the program that you're running off of. It's the program that you're running off of. And so yesterday and today, I'm sure, really just angry, pissed off at herself. Because what happens is, so now she's got that unworthiness piece and a couple other parts as well. But now, and she says to herself, and I'm quoting her, I'm a fucking idiot. I'm fucking stupid. We bring in that part that calls her stupid. We bring in that part that calls her an idiot. Let's have a conversation with it. And it's these are the protector parts. These are the managers of the operating system. All right. And when you start to do this work, you really get you have the ability to completely empower yourself. And that's my purpose in this life, in this role, as a helper, as a counselor, as a practitioner here. I am all about empowering the collective, anyone that is in alignment with me. My mission, my purpose is to empower you to get to know you. Stop blaming everything around you, because even she was doing it yesterday. She's blaming her sister and she's blaming her family, and and by all means, I give space for this. But when we project, again, that's another part of you that is protecting that wound. That little girl that was begging for her father's approval on the kitchen table as she was washing floors and cooking his dinner and piling the wood in the back. That's the wound that these parts are protecting. Okay, because it hurt. It hurt. All right. And so she is willing, and I feel like there's a different tone for this motivation, because I also say, what part of you is motivated, what part of you is not. And I want to bring the motive. I want to bring both, because a lot of times these roles in you, You're not going crazy, I promise. We feel like we're going crazy sometimes, but we're not. These are different. That's how brilliant our species is. Our brain, our body, that's how brilliantly beautiful made we are here. We are able to tap into different energies, different roles. And these roles for her, there's the motivated part and there's the unmotivated part. They're scared. She's scared. There's fear there. I want to dance with the fear. I want to dance with that scared part of her. All right. And I really do think that there's going to be a shift. There's going to be a shift within the next few sessions with this individual. I hold hope. I hold hope until there is evidence that proves me otherwise. And even if there is evidence, yes, I'm an intellectual, being here. I also do tap into the heart. I tap into quantum physics. I tap into the energies, and I believe that those of you that are in these type of scenarios, and I know I unpacked a lot there because there was a relationship, unhealthy relationships there, substance use, codependency, attachment, and of course, I did bring in this inner child here and really tied it in together. But you do not have to be using substances. Your firefighter, per se, your coping mechanism could be something else that you run to. All right. And your relationships with your partner, your relationships with your parents, your kids, your colleagues, your kids' teachers, society, the collective. If you don't feel like the world or people are safe, if that's your belief, that's going to play out in your reality. All right. If your relationships, if you're resonating with what I'm saying here, and you were pinged a few times of oh my goodness, like I do see my father in my partner, or I do see my mother in my partner, and I'm kind of getting this. I guess this makes sense. That's a good thing. We got to stop shaming people for recognizing their challengers, because it's just a part of them. All right. And when we start doing that, and when I do this, even because I've done a couple sessions as well, like or family sessions, I'll take the individual, and it's tough on families when they see their family members that are not well. I'll bring them into session, and you can see the dynamics, you can see the roles that they even play out, and I hold space for that, and that comes from their parts that are protecting themselves. They don't understand. They blame, they shame. If you don't do this, I'm not giving you money. If you don't, it's a very codependent, attached relationship. And if things are coming up for you here, that's it. I've done my job. I've done my job in creating awareness, because we all have parts. I am no better than you. Just because I'm sitting here as a teacher here and a facilitator on this side, I have parts that I have worked on for years. All right. And it is hard. It's like some of these parts will bring you to your knees because they're holding on so tight, and they just want love. They want acceptance. They don't want to hurt anymore. And when we're projecting, if there's a scenario there and we're projecting on our partners, for example, and saying, how dare he not do A, B, and C, and look at the position I'm in right now, check in on those parts. You may be triggering him. Check in. Don't look outside yourself. Don't, as if he didn't show up tonight. He knows I've got this, that, and the other, and he left me with the kids. or what have you. Check into that resentment. What's coming up for you? What's coming up? Did you have something to do? Did you have something planned? And now it's interrupted? And you're not going to be able to fulfill your expectations for and your obligations maybe for a tomorrow meeting or what have you. You can't prepare properly. Tap into that. I know I'm like that. Getting a little bit better. Sometimes these parts peek in, but I'm aware of them, and then I'll be able to bring them back up if they need attention, because that's what they didn't get before, was the attention, the compassion, the curiosity. What are you there for? Why am I, my husband does work, and yes, he should have been home at this time. I'm a wingnut when it comes to punctuality. Just nuts. I'm getting so much better, though. I laugh about it because I can. Okay. I've been with my husband for, 18, 19 years here. Okay. And so punctuality is something I was always able to control. All right. Because I wanted to be on time, and I wanted to be prepared, and I wanted to be, acknowledged and praised. And that's something I can check off on my box, that I can project to others, that I'm always on time and prepared and what have you. Yeah, sometimes we're going to be late. Sometimes, especially with the job that my husband does, he's an accountant, and meetings run. He's got a lot of clients. He's busy. He also works for the local university. We're busy here. And so if he's late, I am just raging. He is disrespecting me. That's the story I would tell myself. Not so much these days, but I'm kind of being shoved to speak about my great challenge with punctuality and actually attaching it to being disrespectful. And I know many of you can relate to this, because we live in the Western world here, and we're so busy, and we've got so much to do. All right. But that comes from a place of feeling completely out of control and unstable as a child. I moved around a lot. I grew up in the system, and I went back and forth to mom, dad, grandma. And so there was not a lot of consistency. There was not a lot of things that I knew that were going to happen. If anything, it was very much the opposite. So that part of me of being obsessed and controlling, and the idea of being perfect coming in, came online for me at quite a young age. And then me being able to, in my adult life, okay, I can say the right things. I am smart. Education was a very big one for me, because that was the one constant that I went to, which that part, obviously, it worked out for me. But it gets to the point that if I am not A, B, and C in this arena, then I'm not valued and loved over here. So with the punctuality, I know it's so complex. I'm a circus inside, woohoo! But it's good though. This is great, because I know you guys are. The collective is a little bit of a circus as well. So then we can all enter the tent together, and it'll be a big shit show. And we can love and support each other. And because I do have skill in this arena, and I do think I'm equipped in this area, I get to bring it up. I get to say, my punctuality. And if somebody wasn't on time, especially my husband, but then that comes from a place of not being able to rely on the people around me. I couldn't rely on anybody. So then when my husband doesn't show up, it has nothing to do with being late. My part of me comes on. It doesn't recognize this as a scenario. All it knows is that somebody is disrespecting me again. There's proof. These parts come in to say, oh, see, don't get too close to that one, because they're going to hurt you, and they are going to abandon you, and they're going to reject you, and they're not going to respect you. That's the shit that comes up, right? And so now I get to recognize it. I know where it comes from. I get to nurture that part. And when it comes back online, and it actually, so we took off last weekend out of town. It was my son's birthday. We went to really good friends of ours, a little bit out of town here. And my husband was like an hour late. Okay. You know what? No expectation of time these days. So I really set myself up and say, no, he is not disrespecting me. He's actually providing for the family, thankfully. And so I get to reprogram this. But if it nudges up a little bit, I get to tell it, it's okay. We'll get there when we get there. We get to communicate with the people that are expecting us. They know our situation. But before, it would literally ruin our travels. It would ruin mine, that's for sure. And he would just block it out. But he knew it because it's energy. You can feel it. Okay. But that part of me was trying to control it all. Trying to control it all. And what are they going to think of us if we are an hour late? I don't want them to reject me. I don't want them to judge me. You see where this is going? All right. If your friends and family, if you are kind of on a shift here and you're really looking at your parts and you're looking at your life and you're looking at what does trigger you and challenges you, and your family is not supportive of that and they judge and shame you, that's a part to bring in. That's a part to bring in and to hold. And then your higher self, your authentic self, after under all these stories, is going to come in and is going to hold space for you and say, wait a minute. Actually, I know genuinely I do not intend to disrespect anybody's time. I know that I'm a good person. I know that I can do my best to plan, but sometimes, the universe has a different plan. I know all this, and maybe we avoid an accident. Maybe there was an accident an hour earlier. I don't, these kind of things. It's kind of like the Matrix here. I like to think of it like that. I'm going to trust what is happening to and for us will lead us to the people we are aligned with. We are meant to be aligned with. So as you shift, I've had some major shifts in the last couple of years. And I can tell you right now, the people that are no longer in my life, I would have never expected them to be out of my life. But when you take these shifts and they are no longer in alignment with you and they don't respect your boundaries, they don't respect this evolved person of yourself, because sometimes looking at it doesn't feel very good. And if you're using your truth, you're using your voice and you're saying no, when you used to say yes all the time, and you're using your boundaries, your family is going to be like, hell no, they're going to get triggered. And the people that are no longer in my life today, because of this shift, is I send them so much love and compassion because they are on their own journey and they have their own path and they have their own parts that they're dealing with. But don't get it twisted. You do not have to enmesh yourself into somebody else's expectations if you're compromising your own. Never, ever, ever. That's called no or partial boundaries. All right. And then you want to bring that up. All right. But once you start doing this, and once you really start advocating for yourself, your relationships are going to start to change. And even with your partners, if you, I say to my partner, wow, this came up for me. I was actually really rattled and pissed off that you did that you did this. Okay. And it's not physical or verbal abuse. That's different. Even that, absolutely, you stand up and advocate for yourself in that regards. But him being late had everything to do with me. He didn't say, do, or anything. It's completely outside of myself, and I was projecting. But when we get to tell our partners and our family members and our friends, well, actually, I'm really working on this part of me, this little part of me, because chances are it's a little version of you. It still thinks you're in the Stone Age over there 30, 20, 30, 10 years ago, where you were trying to protect yourself. So if you say, I'm actually doing this kind of work, and if you can, maybe hold some space for me while I'm recognizing that I'm being triggered with what you're saying or doing, if we can be mindful here, I mean, while I work on this part of me and nurture it and really see what it has to say and what it's protecting and and what have you, it needs to be heard. And while I'm doing this work, I'd really like to be alongside you here. Those are different conversations that I'm sure you've been having with your partner. Okay. And if they don't respect, and if they think this is, there's again more emotional and verbal abuse, then, there's choices to be made here. And there's no perfect timing or perfect scenario to say when is a relationship done, whether that being a family member or a partner. There's no perfect timing here. But once you really start unraveling all these protecting parts of you and these challengers in you, you're going to see, it's going to be clear as day who's aligned and who's not. And you're going to be able to approach these relationships that are no longer aligned with you. You're going to be able to approach them with love and compassion and understanding, to say, I understand that this is where you are at right now. Okay. This is where you're at. You're going to be, do, and say things that I don't agree with. And I can no longer be in this relationship anymore. And that's okay. That's okay. You stick with somebody that you are completely miserable with and unhappy with while you're working on these parts. And if they're on the other end of it, shaming you and mocking you and really, continuing that cycle of abuse, really, you can't change them. You can't change them, I promise. You can model. And that's when your higher self is going to come in. And that's when people, including myself, that's when people will come into your life and you're going to vibe with them. Some of you, I know even through private messages and comments and everything, there's a vibe there. Okay. And you're like, oh, I'm not feeling so alone. You're going to come in alignment with people that you are a match to. It's quantum physics. Once you start working on these parts, you're going to be able to bring up the reality that's here, out into the world. All right, we've got a couple more minutes here. Lots to share. I feel like I've calmed down a little bit though, which is nice. I feel a little bit more grounded right now. So hopefully I wasn't too scattered. I know when I started, I was just a wing nut, but that's okay. That's my personality as well. I'm hyper, and I like to talk, obviously, and I like to share, and I like to go off the seat of my pants here. But anywho, I'm going to leave you with that. I said a lot there, and I know you'll resonate. Please comment. Please, like my client said, if you can, because she knows, my clients follow me here as well. Talk about why I keep on patterning into these unhealthy relationships and actions. Please talk about that. So, she kind of gave me a little bit of an idea here. And it's real life, something I dealt with this week. So, anywho, that's it for Tough Talks, episode 6. Catch me next Thursday, noon, right here on my Turnleaf Facebook page. If you're interested in an individual session with me, you can also book that on my page as well. All right, take care of yourself. Sending all the light and all the love. We'll see you next Thursday right here. Bye for now.